Well, folks, we have a massive shakeup in the 2026 Senate election in North Carolina. Lara Trump, the daughter-in-law of President Donald Trump, has officially declined to run for the North Carolina Senate seat in the 2026 Senate election. This decision was announced earlier today that really will change the Republican strategy in this critical race in North Carolina. She was a prominent figure with strong ties to President Donald Trump, and her choice not to pursue the Senate seat leaves the North Carolina Senate race wide open at this point. But today, we're going to be breaking down why exactly Lara Trump took a step back and what exactly this means for the 2026 Senate elections. Now, Lara Trump, who is a native of North Carolina and a former RNC co-chair, was seen as the front runner for the GOP nomination after incumbent Senator Roy Cooper announced that he was not going to run for re-election in 2026. He would retire. President Trump immediately endorsed her as his first choice, citing her deep ties to North Carolina and popularity among the GOP base. Now, despite her high profile in North Carolina, in this testy, purple state, North Carolina, with this intense battleground in 2026, Lara Trump cited family considerations, including her young children, as a key reason for declining the Senate seat. Remember, this is nothing new. Lara Trump was seen as a potential replacement. Go back to 2022, the North Carolina Senate race in 2022. Lara Trump was seen as one of the people who could run in this election. Obviously, at that time, Richard Burr, who was the incumbent senator, announced that he was not going to run for re-election, and he endorsed Pat McCrory. Well, obviously, he was a former governor. He lost to Roy Cooper in 2016. There was a lot of controversy around him being the potential nominee. Eventually, Ted Budd won the Republican nomination and then won in 2022, beat his Democrat opponent by roughly about 3 percentage points in 2022. But so this is nothing new to her, being considered as a top pick for the Senate in North Carolina. Now, her decision not to run avoids a potential clash with a strong Democrat contender in Roy Cooper. He is the most popular Democrat in the state. He's a former governor, and he's a former attorney general who still is weighing this bid. But actually, we got news just recently, just yesterday, that Roy Cooper will jump into the North Carolina Senate race on Monday. He will launch his bid to win the seat back from the Republican Party. Now, North Carolina's Senate seat is a top target for the Democrat Party going into 2026. They see it as a chance to chip away at the GOP's slim 53-47 Senate majority right now. Right now, this is what the makeup of the Senate looks like. Democrats have 47 seats. Republicans have 53 seats. And without Lara Trump, the GOP primary is wide open, except we also have big news to announce today. And that is after Lara Trump announced she was not going to run, her co-chair for the RNC, Michael Whately, announced that he will run in the Senate in North Carolina with Donald Trump's support. Donald Trump is endorsing Michael Whately in this election. So it is not an open primary. We actually now have the former RNC chair. Now, I expect that Michael Whately will most likely get the nomination in 2026. There still could be a primary. Don't get me wrong. There still could be. Pat Harrigan has publicly expressed interest in running for this election. So has James Kane, who was a former ambassador to Denmark during the Bush administration. Some other names have been thrown out there, but Michael Whately is by far the most, I would say, competitive person that is in this race as of right now. Whately has been the chair of the RNC for the last year. He helped deliver massive victories across the board for the Republican Party in 2024. Now, on the Democrat side, like we said, Roy Cooper is not alone. Wiley Nickel, a former representative in the U.S. House of Representatives, is running for this Senate seat. Now, we don't know how will that be affected by the fact that Roy Cooper, the former very popular governor from the state, is going to jump into this race. But getting back to Lara Trump in this decision not to run, I believe that Lara Trump's Senate bid could have unified a lot of the MAGA base. Do I know if she would be the best candidate? I don't know. That's what's hard, is both of these candidates are untested in statewide elections. Yes, Michael Whately ran. He was the head of the North Carolina GOP before he became the RNC chair. So obviously he has deep ties in the state. So I believe that we were getting the best of the best, whether it was Trump, whether it was Whately. Maybe Whately will be better. Maybe he'll be able to appeal to more moderates and independents than maybe, let's say, Lara Trump would have. We just don't know. It's hard to judge a lot of this stuff off the bat, but it's fair to say that if Roy Cooper's in this race, he probably will have a slight edge over either candidate. Now, with her withdrawal, it leaves the GOP in a very interesting place, because Michael Whately will have the name recognition and the fundraising ability in the 2026 election. So you almost are getting the best of both here. Like you're also getting a big name Republican to jump in this race to run, because North Carolina has a history of close Senate races that make this very pivotal for Republicans. It's pivotal for Republicans to maintain control of the Senate going forward, not just in 26, but in 28, in 23, or in 30, in 32. Those are big things. But at the end of the day, he is running. He's a top contender, and I believe Donald Trump has given his endorsement to Michael Whately in this election. But it appears right now that he is going to clear the field. There are a lot of other lesser-known GOP figures, other representatives who may enter the race, but they really lack the name recognition, the national profile, like either Lara Trump or Michael Whately have. And the ideal candidate will need to be able to appeal to both MAGA voters to shore up that base, and to moderates if they want to win in a state that Donald Trump carried by 3 points. Look, this isn't a state that Donald Trump carried by massive margins, if we're being honest. He didn't carry it by even like a Texas or a Florida where you're into the double digits, clearly into the double digits. We're looking at single digits, 2, 3, 4 percentage points you're winning by here. This is not a deep red state, and I feel like the best person you can look at is Dave McCormick. Remember, Dave McCormick got passed over in 2022. If you're looking at the Republican primary, we saw right here that Dave McCormick, he was the U.S. Undersecretary of the Treasury for International Affairs in the Bush administration, and he was the CEO at Bridgewater Associates. Obviously, that is that's the fund that Ray Dalio started. He's a big hedge fund investor, and he was passed over. He was seen as a much better candidate than someone like Mehmet Oz. Obviously, Donald Trump endorsed Mehmet Oz, Dr. Oz, in 22. But he was seen as a candidate who could had more appeal to independents and moderates in this election. And you saw what happened. Mehmet Oz, he lost this race to John Fetterman by 5 points. In a year Republicans should have done a lot better. Fast forward to 2022, Dave McCormick gets the nod and unseats incumbent Bob Casey. Obviously, Bob Casey, he has been in the Senate for a long time. Initially, when in his first election back in 2006, beating out incumbent senator at that time, Rick Santorum. He's been in the Senate, and it was unseated after 2 decades by Dave McCormick. And I think this is exactly what Republicans need to do. They need to find Dave McCormick-esque figures, Brian Kemp-esque figures, people who can win in competitive seats, and they can win by decent margins, or they can unseat long-term incumbents like Bob Casey. That's exactly what you need. And I think Michael Whately may have that. He may have it. He may not. I'm not 100% sure yet. We need to let this play out at this point. But I think there is a lot of good news to take out of this, that Lara Trump's not going to run. Michael Whately's running. But also remember, Roy Cooper is going to jump in this race. He is expected to launch his bid. I believe it said on July 28th, next Monday, he will launch this bid. But now I think it's fair. They have a clear front runner. But I do believe that the North Carolina Senate race, it's going to, for the most part, remain a toss-up state going into 2026. Obviously, with Roy Cooper, I think I could give it a slight edge for the Democrat Party. But Democrats eye this. This is the best pickup opportunity they have in a state that has been trending purple over the last couple years. And Republicans must rally behind a candidate who can unify the party and withstand a well-funded Democrat campaign. They must. And the 2026 Senate elections will test whether Republicans can maintain their Senate majority amid a challenging midterm environment for the Republican Party. But folks, stay tuned as updates come out in the North Carolina Senate election in 2026. But folks, that is going to wrap things up for today. As always, folks, drop down below, hit that subscribe button, make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. And folks, we will catch you next time.